This is Kimberly Quinn, host of the Mindcraft podcast, and I can't tell you how much fun I have had doing this podcast. I started when the world closed over the pandemic in an attempt to spread some positivity out there and give people some strategies to enhance their own well being and reduce anxiety and all of that. Now, 2 years later, we're still going strong and now listened to by 52 countries across the world. And I've even helped some of my students get going with their own podcasts. It's super easy to do. And I'll tell you, if you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it is the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. I'll just explain for you. Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It is a ball. Start today. Greetings, Minecrafters, and welcome to another Minecraft podcast episode today. My name is Kimberly Quinn, and I am elated to have this conversation today on how negativity is contagious. You hear people say sometimes, misery loves company. No, that's a myth. Misery loves miserable company, and this is how it works. So here's the thing, complaining is contagious. And, if you hear somebody just whining, like I'm thinking on the, Schultz Peanuts, the cartoons, Peanuts, you hear that adult voice in the cartoon going wah 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 wah, right? That is what complaining honestly sounds like to me. When somebody's complaining around me, and once you're kind of on this path, with to positivity, with positivity, surrounding yourself with positivity, you become sort of hypersensitive to it in a way, or maybe not, that's not the right way to say it, but hyper aware of it. That's the better way to say it. Hyper aware of it, because it's not like it's sensitive, like it, we just don't, we repel it and ignore it and kind of just, stay out of the path to it or yield to it. Maybe that's the best way to say it. But those on the positivity track are definitely become very much more aware of negativity and not and less apt to bite the hook and jump on the negativity train, because we just don't have any interest in that. And there's a comedian named Loretta LaRoche, and she's from, I think, Brooklyn, New York, and I love her. Just hearing her accent is like a warm blanket and a cup of hot cocoa. But when she talks about, she's hysterical, and she talks about positivity and stress and all things kind of well-being. When she talks about the whiners and complainers, she's hysterical. So she'll imitate somebody in the workplace saying, "Oh no, it's raining again. It's my day off. How come it always rains on my day off?" And she says it's like there's like the clouds formed a conspiracy and they all decide to rain on your day off. And the thing is, and she's so funny. The thing is that people, when they're surrounded by this, they take it on themselves. So I like to say it's like noise pollution, or it's like secondhand smoke. Like, if somebody wants to smoke and take all the toxins into their lungs, go right ahead. That's your prerogative. However, I don't want to breathe the smoke. I don't want that smoke anywhere near me or my kids, right? Or my husband or anything else. Just go and smoke way out there in a corner, downwind for me, because I don't want it in my lungs. Well, I feel the same way when people are spewing negativity, they're complaining, they're also gossiping. That's another one. Gossiping is just a horrible train to jump on. It can be so easy to. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear people taking other people down. I don't want to hear whining, complaining in general. Just say no to negativity. So here are a couple of other negativity, not so fun facts. Negativity can also increase our aggression. We can be like a microaggressor. I mean, like lots of swearing doesn't have to mean that something huge, but it's aggressive. It's not good for our relationships. We also know that negativity can contribute to long-term stress, for sure. And I think we all know about the dis dash ease. that comes from long-term stress. Long-term stress can actually play a role in the causation of some major diseases and just being dis-ease in general. It pummels the immune system. Long-term stress also affects the hippocampus, which is part of the limbic system, involved with memory and learning, and that of course is affected by the stress hormone cortisol. Negativity. Another thing about negativity is obviously plays a huge role in pessimism, and pessimism we know is a straight path to depression, and obviously depression is more complicated than that, though remove the pessimism and there's that's a big, huge, gaping chunk out of depression. Pessimism is a straight path to depression because it's all about the thinking, the distorted thinking, and for the pessimist, everything is pervasive, permanent, and personal, or personal, pervasive, and permanent. It's kinda like the clouds example I gave you with Loretta LaRoche. It's the clouds of a conspiracy against it's my day off and how all kind of things like that. And that it's permanent, that there's no way out, right? And so negativity is nothing that should be taken lightly, right? Negativity can also exacerbate loneliness, which is currently reached epidemic levels in the United States, at least. It's right up there with currently with heart disease, obesity, and smoking as a leading cause of death. So this whole thing with the negative Nellies, we can make jokes about the negative Nellies. Oh, she's whining all the time. Oh, she's complaining all the time. It's really gotta take it a little bit more seriously than that, and figure out a way to get out of the path of it. Get out of the path of it. Yield to it. Ignore it. Move away from it. Step back from it. Because the fact is, negativity is contagious and corrodes. It corrodes whatever's in its path like battery acid. It can corrode somebody's life minutes, which affects their whole day and then affects weeks and affects, 'cause it's bad. That's it. Negativity is bad. And so I want to do a shout out to Jay Shetty. He's one of my new teachers. I talk about Wayne Dyer, my dear friend Oprah a lot, and Brene Brown and Loretta LaRoche. I was talking about her. Maya Angelou's another one I adore, and I've got a bunch of them. And Jay Shetty is kind of new to me, and I've really enjoyed his podcast. He's also written a book called Think Like a Monk that I've been immersed in. And so I got to give a shout out to him for inspiring me. I'm already kind of onto the whole, positive psychology thing, obviously, though. In his book, he's which is excellent, highly recommend it. He talks about types of negative people, which is really cool. So he says that negative behaviors surround us so constantly that we can grow accustomed to them. So here's I'm gonna just rattle these off. Types of negative people. He said there are the complainers, like the friend on the phone who complain endlessly without looking for solutions. Life is a problem that will be hard, if not impossible, to solve. I just I definitely have got a force field up with this crew. And just to do a disclaimer, which I think is relatively obvious, but we're not talking about when your partner, your best friend, maybe that's the same person, your children, family member, friend, whatever, are having like an authentic heartache, need you to listen. That's not the same thing. We're talking about the whiners and complainers, and like Jay just said with the complainers, they're usually not looking for a solution. They're just an automatic pilot rambling away and spewing toxicity into the atmosphere. Again, like secondhand smoke. And then he talks about, let me see, one, two, three. There's looks like he has seven of them here. Okay, the first one is the complainers. The second one is the cancelers, who take a compliment and spin it. You look good today becomes, you mean I looked bad yesterday? And oh my gosh, I actually had an experience with a person like this. I didn't really know her super well. She was in this, she was a mom in the elementary school when our kids were there, 2 decades ago. And I said something basic like, "How are you?" And her response was, "What do you mean financially?" Or it was just so off track. And I remember processing this with another friend later. I didn't even know her that well, really. I think our kids were together just in the school. I don't know. But bounced off his friend. I said, "Was it just me, or was that really odd?" And then she said more than that. It was "How are you?" Like that basic. And she turned that into this whole like almost where there's no way to sidestep out of it. So I just stopped talking. Um, Giving that, like he uses the example of you look good today means, oh, I must have looked bad yesterday. Instead of just accepting and feeling that goodness that the person is saying something nice. The third type of negative person he calls a casualty. These are those who think the world is against them and blame their problems on others. I think we've all met that person. Like everything's a conspiracy, kind of like the cloud conspiracy, the whole world's against them and blaming other people. And of course, the blame shame game is a way to dodge accountability, which helps no one. And then Jay says the fourth one is the critics. He talks about the critics are those who judge others for either having a different opinion or not having one for any choices they've made that are different from what the critic would have done. So this is the judger, basically, right? The person who's just judging. And really, obviously, when somebody judges, it says zero about the person they're judging or the judgee, and everything about the judger or the critic. And then the fifth one, the commanders. Those are those who realize are the negative Nellies who realize their own limits but pressure others to succeed. They'll say, "You never have time for me," even though they're busy as well. Don't we know those people too? It's kind of like if I called the poker bluff, you wouldn't know what to do because you wouldn't have any room in your schedule either. But they just have to let you know that. Number six is the competitors. These are the negative Nellies who compare themselves to others, controlling and manipulating to make themselves or their choices look better. They are in so much pain that they want to bring others down. Often we have to play down our successes around these people because we know they can't appreciate them. I think we know people like this too. I know that I wouldn't say I've met a lot of them in my life, but I've definitely met some, and I have a memory of being, I don't know if I was aware as like I am right now reading this book and doing this podcast, but I have a memory of being aware on some level to play down whatever it was going on with me that was good because it wouldn't be well received or they would get jealous or envious or something like that. It would just instinctively knew to just keep a lid on it, which is a drag, because your friends want you to rise. The authentics want you to rise no matter what. And they're behind you, they support you, they're elated when they hear things are going, well for you. The competitor, this type of negative Nelly, not so much. And then lastly, the controllers who monitor and try to direct how their friends or partners spend time and with whom and what choices they make. Now these are negative Nellies, but this one is definitely a bigger problem because control the need the you know the huge need for control can be indicative of lots of issues, especially if it accompanies rage, and it could even be part of some narcissism going on. But we anyway, the controllers who monitor and try to direct how their friends or partners spend time with whom and the choices they make. Yikes. So those are the seven types of negative Nellies that Jay Shetty discusses. So you can give those some thought and maybe be a little bit more aware of these um, types of people. And of course, and Jay encouraged us to go ahead and have fun trying to see if you know anybody in these that checks any of these boxes here. When we put people in these box types, it also can help us to be aware for ourselves, as far as how to manage each type, especially if you want to, continue to have them in your life and everything. It just means that you might just need to handle them better, the time that you spend with them a little differently. And then there's some ways to deal with these people. We talked earlier in an earlier episode, I forget if that was this morning or not, it's all kind of blending together in the lovely summer. But one way to handle, life in general with the different people in our lives is to work at becoming an objective observer, to take a step back. That's what it was. We're talking about react. It's rather than reacting, take a step back, breathe, and try to look as an objective observer what this behavior was. And it doesn't mean that person gets a pass. We're not saying that. However, when we can understand it by taking a step back of why they may have done whatever, even it was snarky or nasty or blatant maltreatment or whatever, at least understanding helps us because the if someone's hurting you, they're hurting themselves. That's how it works. And they're that kind of spilling out onto us. So again, it doesn't give them a pass. However, it does help us to understand and also to let some air out of the balloon, I think. And then of course, there's the obvious, maybe not obvious, but very Buddhist way to handle things, which is to detach. And it doesn't mean, again, we give anybody a pass. It means we can detach with love. It just means that we're not attached to the behavior anymore. And it also what goes along with this, which a shout out would go to Dom Miguel Ruiz, which is not to take anything personally, anything. And 98+% of what anybody says or does is about them. Even if they're using our name, they're using circumstances, it's all coming through a filter from their upbringing, what birth order they were, whatever's happened in their own lives, their mental health issues, what kind of a day they had, whether they're hungry, whether they're tired, whether they're angry, whether they're sick. It goes with this huge filter. And none of it, almost next to none, next to zilch, has to do with us. And that is very important to remember as well. And then Jay has this 25-75 rule, which I really like. And I think in positive psychology, it's actually 5-to-1 ratio with events in your day, five positive ones to sort of cancel out a negative one. I got to look that up, but I'm pretty sure it's 5-to-1. Anyway, Jace has a similar idea with a 3-to-1 ratio with negative Nellies. So if you have one negative Nelly in your life or in your day, either way, to kind of make sure you have three uplifting people, three positive vibes, three really good vibes to help cancel out that one negative Nelly. And then obviously, we can decide how much, how many of our life minutes we want to devote to this person. And I've done a thing on that before in a different episode about creating a budget for our life minutes anyway. So if somebody you want to still keep them in your life, maybe they're even a sibling or a partner, but they got a little bit of a moody negative side to them. You have to kind of partition out what times of day or how much time in general to spend with them, and then make sure that you are the rest of the time surrounding yourself with good vibes who are uplifting you and recharging you, and really all about helping you to rise. Okay, Minecrafters, so that is basically it. Negativity in a nutshell, and how to yield to it. Sometimes back up from it, sometimes ignore it, but no matter what, we don't want to digest it. It's contagious and it corrodes our life minutes, which means it corrodes our life. Don't take it in like secondhand smoke. That's it. This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from the beautiful Northern Vermont. Have a mindful, very positive day.